Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Look, if you're anything like me, you probably spend way too much of your summer weekends out in the yard, sweating, fighting off this relentless invasion of weeds, right? It's that chore we all just absolutely dread. But today, we're going to completely flip your perspective. We're diving into the idea that your weekend lawn chores might actually be destroying scientifically validated medicinal marvels. Seriously. The very plants you're trying to wipe out, they've been quietly solving medical problems for centuries. So what if you're throwing away powerful, natural medicine every single weekend? It's time for a major paradigm flip here. See, while most of us look at a patch of chickweed and just see, a frustrating landscaping problem, laboratories all over the world are currently verifying the profound antimicrobial power of those exact same plants. They're literally studying their wound healing capabilities, their immune support, their crazy nutritional density. The stuff you're tossing into the compost bin every Sunday, it's completely outperforming expectations in modern pharmacological studies. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the hidden backyard pharmacy. We kind of have to start with the most recognizable weed in North America, right? The dandelion. Notice its scientific name, Taraxacum officinale. Now that word officinale is a massive clue. In botanical Latin, it literally means a plant historically kept in official pharmacies as a recognized medicine. No joke. Every single part of the dandelion is packed with value. The leaves are absolutely loaded with vitamins A, C, and K, plus antibacterial flavonoids like luteolin and apigenin. And for centuries, European herbalists successfully used dandelion root as this powerful liver tonic and digestive bitter. Actually, modern research is totally backing that up right now by looking at how it positively affects bile flow. Next up is plantain. And no, definitely not the banana-like fruit. We're talking about that broadleaf weed that stubbornly grows in the compacted dirt right near your driveway. Native American peoples famously called it white man's footprint because it reliably sprang up wherever European settlers walked. But its true magic, that's in its staggering 3,000-year history as a wound poultice. Modern ethnopharmacology journals have actually confirmed that plantain contains acubin and allantoin. In simple terms, this means it legitimately fights serious skin infections, actively inhibiting Staphylococcus aureus, all while promoting cell proliferation to heal your cuts. So, we've laid the foundation. Now let's move on to Section 2, First Aid Under Your Feet. Yarrow is basically one of the oldest documented medicinal plants in human history. If we follow its timeline, back in ancient Greece, legend says the hero Achilles used it to treat his soldiers' bleeding wounds on the battlefield, which, by the way, is exactly where its genus name, Achillea, comes from. Then we see Native American tribes across dozens of traditions using it extensively for pain and fever. Fast forward to today, and modern labs confirm that its active compound, achillenol, along with specific alkaloids, actually supports blood clotting at wound sites and delivers some really strong antimicrobial action. Now, a super crucial warning here, guys. If you have allergies to the Asteraceae family, like ragweed, or if you are pregnant, you absolutely need to avoid yarrow. Historically, it's been used to stimulate uterine contractions, so definitely steer clear in those cases. This quote from the 17th century English herbalist Nicholas Culpeper hits the nail on the head for our next plant, chickweed. He recommended it for inflammatory skin conditions and joint pain. Now, chickweed forms these dense, low mats and honestly looks incredibly fragile, like almost too delicate to be useful. But that appearance is totally misleading. Modern chemical analysis shows this tiny weed is packing high concentrations of saponins and coumarins that actively inhibit bacterial strains like E. coli. Science is perfectly aligning with Culpeper's centuries-old folk remedies here, proving exactly why a simple mashed chickweed poultice cools and heals eczema and itchy skin. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point, self-heal. I mean, this plant has one of the most direct names in the entire botanical world, and it completely earned it by fighting serious infections across totally unconnected global cultures. English herbalists, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, Native American healers, they all used self-heal for wounds that just stubbornly refused to close. Why? Well, because it's incredibly rich in rosmarinic acid, which is a really well-studied antimicrobial. Even more amazingly, it contains ursolic acid. Laboratory studies show that compound actively inhibits MRSA, the notorious antibiotic-resistant staph infection. Let's shift our explainer's focus away from wound care for a second and jump to Section 3, superfoods in plain sight. Now, what's really interesting about these nutritional heavyweights is how they just completely redefine our whole idea of a superfood. Check this out. Purslane is the highest known plant source of omega-3 ALA, and it contains glutathione, which is a master antioxidant. Stinging nettle? It contains more iron than beef, gram for gram. That's wild. Lamb's quarters boasts more calcium than milk. And that beautiful wild violet you see popping up every spring actually contains more vitamin C per gram than oranges. Plus, it carries these highly potent antimicrobial peptides called cyclotides. Guys, these aren't just weeds. They're absolute nutritional heavyweights, drastically outperforming the carefully cultivated veggies sitting in your fridge right now.
Okay, I know exactly what you're thinking when I mentioned stinging nettle. You're remembering that awful, painful sting, but it's actually super easy to safely disarm it. First, obviously, wear protective gloves when harvesting. Second, locate it in moist, nitrogen-rich soil. And third, here's the secret, just blanch the leaves in boiling water for exactly 30 seconds. That quick blast of heat completely neutralizes the sting, making it perfectly safe and honestly delicious. And trust me, you want to eat this stuff. Nettle contains quercetin and acts as a powerful, research-backed antihistamine. Participants in clinical studies literally rated it just as effective as over-the-counter pharmacy allergy meds.
8,000. That massive number is the amount of years archaeological sites prove humans have been actively managing and cultivating our next weed, lamb's quarters, for food. This wild spinach was famously eaten by native peoples all along the historic Lewis and Clark route. Think about that. We blast it with weed killer today, but for 8 millennia, it was a vital, nutrient-packed staple of human survival. Let's transition to some truly complex plants with Section 4, Ancient Healers, Modern Science. Take burdock, for example. This is one of the most surprising anecdotes in botanical history. So, a Swiss engineer named George de Mestral takes his dog for a walk, gets super annoyed by the sticky burdock seed burrs stuck in his dog's coat, decides to put them under a microscope, and boom, he uses their hooked structure to invent Velcro. How crazy is that? But its true power goes way deeper than a neat invention. It has a 2,000-year history in Chinese and Japanese cuisine as a prebiotic annulant source known as gobo. And today, modern labs are isolating its compound, arctogenin, which is showing some truly incredible antiviral effects against influenza and respiratory pathogens. Next up is the common mallow. Its scientific name is literally Malva neglecta, meaning the neglected mallow. And honestly, it's a super fitting name for how we treat it today. But this weed is packed with mucilaginous compounds. When you mix it with water, this soluble fiber forms a soothing, thick gel. It coats irritated throats and mucous membranes, directly discouraging bacterial attachment. This plant definitely wasn't neglected historically, though. It was extensively documented by the Greek physician Dioscorides all the way back in the 1st century as a premium traditional European throat remedy. Then there's mugwort. This is perhaps the most medically complex weed sitting out in your yard right now. It has this incredibly sacred history, used for centuries in moxibustion. That's the practice of burning the dried herb near acupuncture points to stimulate healing. Its compounds, camphor and cineol, are fiercely antimicrobial. However, we really must emphasize a critical warning here. Mugwort contains thujone, which is toxic in high amounts, especially if you're using it in essential oils. Most critically of all, it is strictly contraindicated during pregnancy. Its traditional use to stimulate menstruation carries a very, very serious risk of miscarriage, so please keep that in mind.
We've covered an incredible array of medicinal and nutritional powerhouses growing just outside your door. Let's bring this explainer to a conclusion with Section 5, Put Away the Weed Killer.
So the crucial point here is that while this backyard pharmacy is totally free and wildly powerful, you have to be smart about it. Always, always accurately identify any plant before you even think about consuming it. Respect the medical contraindications, just like the ones we discussed with yarrow and mugwort. And keep in mind that plants like purslane and lamb's quarters contain oxalic acid, very similar to spinach. If you have kidney stone issues, you'll want to eat them in moderation. And remember, cooking these greens drastically reduces that oxalic acid content, making them much safer to consume in larger quantities. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The most effective, nutritionally dense, scientifically validated medicinal garden in America might already be growing right in your lawn, completely for free. Think about it. We've spent decades and billions of dollars trying to eradicate these plants, totally blind to what modern research is now actively proving they can do. The backyard pharmacy is officially open. The only question left is, will you stop pulling it? Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.